Today we're taking a look at the best champions to play in every single role in patch 12.10. Before we get started, make sure you head to our website to check out our builds, runes and guides for every single champion featured on this list. We also have videos on how to play every single champion, detailed combo demonstrations, matchups, win rates and endless more crucial content to help you rank up in League of Legends. Let's jump into the video now and start off with the best champions in the top lane. The first one is going to be Kayle, and this is probably one that none of you were surprised about being on this list. Kayle already had an insane win rate going into this patch, and the durability changes just made her even stronger. So much so that she's already received some hotfix nerfs, which aren't going to make too much of a difference though. These durability changes really helped Kayle out in the early game. She's now far harder to punish throughout the lane phase, which means she's going to scale up easier, and when she does scale up, she's impossible to beat. Level 16 Kayle is one of the most terrifying things in the game to play against. The sheer amount of AoE damage this champion can do in the late game is simply unrivaled. And when you're playing against her, you are basically against the clock, because if she does get to level 16, the game is probably over. Kayle's actually pretty easy to learn as well. She's not got the most complex kit in the world, which means she works brilliantly at every single rank. Kayle probably has one of the best carry potentials in the entire game right now. And as long as you don't int into a really bad matchup, you're just going to win a lot of games on this champion. Darius is the master of extended fights. The healing he does from his Q, the bleed damage he does with his passive, and the true damage with his ultimate has made him an absolute monster in this patch. This is probably the highest we've seen Darius's win rate for quite some time, and he didn't even get nerfed in the little hotfix patch. Darius has always been absolutely insane when it comes to pub stomping low elo games, but he does also have an even better win rate at high ranks right now. It's really easy to get ahead in lane on Darius at the moment, and if you do get ahead, it's really hard to lose that lead. If people come up to try and stop you and gank you, you often just end up killing them as well. All you gotta do is focus down one target, kite around with your ghost and your flash and your Q, healing off all the damage, let your bleed constantly tick them down, and then pop them with your ultimate and get the reset. When you get the reset, you can do it again on the other champion and basically just 1v2 or even 1v3 very often. The thing is with Darius in this patch, it feels like you don't even have to worry about his poor team fighting. Often you go into those fights so far ahead and you just sprint into backlines, deal a boatload of damage and absorb all abilities thrown your way. If you've enjoyed playing Darius in the past, now is the best time to revisit him. The next top lane choice is just going to have to be Fiora. She was already in such a good spot, and now she's just even better. The consistent damage output of this champion is seriously impressive, and especially with the true damage she gets on each vital. She's got great short trades, sustain, 1v2 potential, scaling, and kind of just has everything you want from that top lane in patch 12.10. Fiora actually does have a pretty high skill ceiling, and she's very difficult to master, which means she is a champion that does get better the higher rank you go. But that also means if you are a gold or plat player, you can use this champion to get even higher and push your limits. The main thing for Fiora is learning your limits and learning your matchups, and as soon as you've got this knowledge under your belt, you can pretty much win any game on this champion right now. Late game split pushing Fiora is pretty horrendous to beat if you don't have lots of CC, and even if you do have the CC, she can often outplay that with her W. Amount of healing, mobility, burst, and extended damage this champion provides when she's got a few items is simply insane. So be prepared to ban this champion if you're not confident playing against her. Our high elo pick of the top lane this patch is just going to be Gangplank. He's still just as good as before, if not better. His scaling is insane, his early game is even better, and it doesn't feel like he's lost much burst because of how much damage he actually does. Plus, you've also got tankier setups for team play rather than just the one-shot madness in solo queue. Our low elo pick for the top lane is Olaf. This guy is just running through entire teams with his armor shredding Q, his damage, his shields, his lifesteal, and of course the fact that he can't be CC'd with his ultimate. If you get a bit of an advantage on Olaf, you're going to be impossible to beat, especially at those lower ranks. Moving on to the jungle now, and in the first position we've got Wukong. Probably one of the best champions in the entire game right now, and honestly even my grandma could play him. He's pretty straightforward, he has a ton of damage, survivability, and AoE CC, which is basically insane in this patch. He's really good at early duels and ganks, his jungle clear is pretty easy, you can't really go too wrong with it, and his impact on the game once he's level 6 is just undeniable. The best change they made to Wukong was allowing his clone to go over walls. It's just made him so much better as a champion when it comes to escaping, engaging, ganking, and even just darting through teams in teamfights. This, when combined with your E and your ultimate, just makes you gap close so often and so easily, and with the armor shred from your Q, you can just kill anyone, no matter how many items they have. Wukong has so many great synergies with so many different champions as well, as not only does he deal a lot of damage with his ultimate, but the double knockup can be absolutely incredible when paired with other high damaging AoE abilities. If you've been playing League of Legends at all for the past few weeks, you'll know just how strong this champion is. And if you haven't played patch 12.10 yet, then all I've got to say is he's even better now. Shyvana has stealthily had an incredible win rate over the last few patches, but now she's even better due to the changes in patch 12.10. You can build her like an AP bruiser, or you can just go down the glass cannon route, but either way, AP Shyvana in the jungle is absolutely insane this patch. She's got one of the best jungle clears in the game, she's super easy to play, and she can easily clear both sides of both jungles in a matter of seconds. Well, maybe not that quick, but you get my point. The main thing about Shyvana is power farming to level 6, and as soon as you do get level 6, you just delete entire teams with your E. Turn into a dragon with your ultimate, walk around the map at the speed of light, and use your flame breath on your enemies and watch them die in no time at all. With Shyvana, it's all about experience, and because you can farm so quickly and get around the map so quickly, you can just delete both jungles so fast. You can also secure dragons and rift heralds with ease and get those bonus resistances for each dragon secured. You become so much tankier whilst also dealing a ridiculous amount of damage, and whether you go for a Frostfire Gauntlet, a Nashor's Tooth, a Night Harvester, you're just going to be so hard to beat because of how much damage you actually deal with one ability. Shyvana is very one-dimensional. She farms up, she uses her ultimate, she uses her E. That's literally all she has to do, but it's seriously effective in patch 12.10 because of how much damage she does and how much damage she absorbs. If you haven't played it yet, give it a go. Lillia has received buff after buff after buff this patch, and they may have seemed minor at the time, but now they've really stacked up and made her an absolute baller. When you combine this with the durability changes in patch 12.10 and how strong she was already, she's now a bit of a monster. She's an absolute menace in extended fights due to that movement speed passive from her Q, and the fact that she just burns people down, weaves in and out of fights, and pops an ability in there now and again when she feels like it. Then you've got your ultimate, which can CC entire teams and feels really good when you manage to pull it off. If you don't have any consistent and solid point-and-click CC, you're just simply not going to kill Lillia this patch. She's going to run around the battlefield, dancing and prancing around, and all you can do is simply sit there and watch your health pool slowly whittle away. Lillia's playstyle is pretty unique, and it does require a lot of movement to pull it off. You can't just walk into a team and mash your face against the keyboard like some other champions. You've got to keep moving, keep kiting, and keep proccing your passive. But if you think this playstyle is for you should definitely be playing her this patch. High elo jungle pick for this patch has just got to be Taliyah. She is incredibly strong in both the jungle and the mid lane at the moment, but it's definitely seeing a bit more success in the jungle, especially at those higher elos. Her map mobility is incredible, her consistent damage output with her Q is super solid, and then she's got those crazy burst windows with her W and E combo. Her passive means she can roam around the map so quickly, her ultimate means she can cut off teams and arrive to fights in a matter of seconds, and the list of benefits of what this champion can do just goes on and on, especially when being played by the right person. Our low elo pick of the patch for the jungle is got to be Volibear. He's been absolutely dominating the jungle scene for the last few months, and this has definitely not changed in patch 12.10. I don't really need to say too much more about this champion though, as if you've played the game in the last few months, you'll already know just how strong he is. Tons of damage, tons of early game ganks, and a shed load of durability. What's not to like? Over to the mid lane now, and the first pick has got to be Anivia. Similar to Taliyah and Kayle, she's already been nerfed in a hotfix this patch, and it was definitely justified. Anivia's win rate has been over 54% since the patch dropped, and even though she was already good before, this patch just made it even more busted. Anivia just has so many favourable matchups. She's got an insane amount of control and utility in her kit, and her damage per second plus her burst windows are absolutely ginormous. She just ticks every single box that you want in patch 12.10. She has an abundance of control and utility, and this just makes her such a great pick throughout all stages of any game. Whether it's abusing melee matchups in the lane phase with a good poke and harass, or scaling into a zoning, wave clearing and controlling monster as the game goes on. Anivia is pretty good at every single rank too, and the champion only gets better the more you play her. She's got an incredibly high skill ceiling and she's very difficult to master, despite being a bit easier to learn than you'd expect. Swain got changed recently and has become a bit of a sustaining powerhouse. He's been one of the most popular champions in the game in so many different roles since he got changed. And now he's really firmly settled into the meta and people are having the most amount of success with him in the mid lane. The best part about Swain is now that his ultimate is indefinite. So now when you hit level 6 you can roam down to those early dragon fights or gank bot lane and just press R and laugh as people try and kill you and fail miserably. Swain offers good damage throughout games, he obviously scales pretty well too, but it really is the fact that he's so unkillable and almost immortal when he does get a lead. Extended fights really are a big part of the game so far in patch 12.10, and Swain's ultimate being indefinite basically sums up what it means to be good in extended fights. The third champion is going to be Viktor. Over this video, we've spoken about champions with good consistent DPS, ones with good burst windows, ones with good scaling, utility, and control. Viktor ticks every single one of these boxes, much like Anivia does. Viktor might not be quite as potent as Anivia as he hasn't received instant nerfs like her, but he is definitely up there with the best of the bunch from this role. This guy's been an incredibly popular champion all season, having some of the highest games played out of any champion in the mid lane, and quite rightly so as he has been Mr. Consistent. There's not much that he doesn't offer either. He's got fantastic trading power, gank setup, early fight contribution, and then he only gets more and more powerful the longer the game goes on. I don't think there'll be many of you watching this video that main the mid lane that haven't been playing Viktor already, but if you haven't, now is a great time to pick him up. Our high elo pick of this patch is Zilean. He's been criminally underrated from that mid lane for quite some time, and in this patch there's already quite a few high elo players that are just borderline abusing him. You just want to chuck a couple of bombs in the lane, clear a few waves, and then just roam around the map, becoming a second roaming support. The damage, the CC, and the zoning potential you have on this champion is nuts, and then don't forget the fact that his ultimate can completely decide teamfights. Zilean just scales so well with all of the control and utility that he provides, which is what the mid lane is all about in patch 12.10. Our low elo pick of the patch for the mid lane is Ahri. No one has really been speaking about this champion since this patch, as everyone's kind of bored of her already, but I'm sorry to say that she's still in a really good position. Much like Viktor, Ahri has been one of the most popular champions all season in the mid lane. She deals a crazy amount of damage, she's got fantastic catch potential, and she can dash indefinitely as long as she keeps killing people. Though you may be considering lots of other champions this patch, Ahri is still a fantastic choice. Let's move on to the bot lane now and start off with those AD carries. Jhin is the first choice, and he's honestly one of the best champions in the entire game right now, and definitely up there with the top 3 AD carries. Another champion much like loads of other choices on this list that have been so good all season and only got even better with this patch. I think the main reason Jhin has really started to pop off this patch is that he can actually survive a lot easier now. Before, he may have had a lot of damage and lots of poke and range and catch, but all you had to do was get on top of him and burst him down in milliseconds. Now with this extra bit of durability, he can stay alive longer and pump out a lot more damage over the course of extended fights. Those fourth shots are seriously hurting, and I mean, I guess people have more health, so it's going to deal more damage, right? AD carries definitely have more opportunity to farm up and scale now. It is actually far more difficult to punish them during the lane phase. You can't just camp them and gank them with your burst and kill them over and over again, and now they actually have an opportunity to outplay you and turn the fights around. Jhin does get limited by his ammo system. He's not a hyper carry which can just shred people on repeat and kite and attack move like a beast, but he does have insane burst windows, crazy amounts of execute damage, and long range catch and pick potential. When you are full build on Jhin in the late game, it's one of the most fun experiences as an AD carry player. You have exceptionally long range with that rapid fire cannon, you've got crazy burst and execute damage, and the combos you can pull off on squishy targets is pretty hilarious to say the least. Gale Force into WQ and fourth shot deals a stupid amount of damage, and it's really fun to pull off. The second AD carry is the one that everyone knows is going to be on this list, and it's Vayne. She's already received some nerfs this patch following on just how insane she was when these changes hit the Rift. When it comes to extended fights and scaling from the bot lane, there is no better champion in the game than Vayne. She may lack a bit of wave clear and struggle in some lanes, but if you do get to the mid to late game, she just becomes insane. That single target burst, that self peel, that silver bolt damage shredding all types of targets just makes Vayne an absolute beast when she's played by the right person. She's got a very impressive win rate across all ranks so far this patch, and even despite the nerf, she's still going to be a fantastic champion to go for. Vayne is one of the rare AD carries that actually has a ton of kite and self peel built into her own kit, meaning she doesn't actually rely on any of her teammates to get the job done. She's got the condemn to push back and stun enemies, she's got the stealth in her tumble, and her ultimate means she can chase and kite to her heart's content. Which brings us onto our next pick, which is Kog'Maw. Kog'Maw on the other hand does require a bit of protection and peel because he doesn't have any of those tools himself. But if you do partner him up with the right champion, he becomes an absolute force to be reckoned with. He's no way near as bad in the early game as people think, and he's probably actually got a better lane phase than Vayne. The long range damage output this champion has as the game goes on is probably some of the highest in the game from an AD carry. If you get a couple of champions on your team that can buff your movement speed, can add some extra utility in the form of shields or buffs, Kog'Maw just becomes even better. Lots of people are playing these type of champions, you know, these utility supports, these utility mid laners, and this just means Kog'Maw instantly gets more viable. Kog'Maw has some pretty interesting itemization paths too. You can just go for Runans, you can go for Guinsoo's on-hit glass cannon, or you can even go for a bit of a tanky setup with Titanic Hydra, Randuin Zoman, and things like that which make you a bit more bulky but still deal a stupid amount of damage. Kog'Maw had a very impressive win rate already for the last few patches, surprisingly, and it's only got better with patch 12.10. More durability means he's less punishable in the early game, and in the late game there is simply no question as to how viable and how valuable this champion could be. Our high elo pick in the bot lane is going to Karthus. Another scaling pick in the bot lane, but this time one that deals magic damage. Karthus has some surprising early burst and then just gets more and more potent as the game progresses. His ultimate means he can farm kills and assists whenever it's up and influence the map whilst he sits downstairs and racks up that CS. He does take a bit of positional practice and you're going to need to be very efficient on this champion to maximise your gold income, but he's now far less punishing than he was last patch and equally as effective. Veigar is our low elo pick of this patch, and what a season this guy's had. He's been really successful in the mid lane and the bot lane this season, and despite having a lower play rate in the bot lane, he actually has a very good win rate. Much like a lot of champions on this list that get affected by this durability change, it's now far harder to punish him in the early game. Then he just scales up, gets more AP with every time he uses his Q, gets a Ravenous Death Cap, and he just one-shots everyone with his ultimate. Veigar also has crazy early AoE CC in his E, which is probably one of the best crowd controlling basic abilities in the game. This can undoubtedly influence early dragon fights, which is really easy to do from that bot lane. If you get fed on Veigar, you're probably going to struggle to lose. Finally, let's move on to those supports, and in the first position we've got Senna, another champion on this list that's already been hotfix nerfed, but still insanely good at the moment. Senna's got that early game range, the poke, the harass, the sustain, and everything else that makes her an absolute nightmare to play against in lane. However, it's actually her scaling, attack speed, range, and damage that really shows how good she is. Late game Senna can attack you from so far away and deal so much damage in extended fights, which is what this patch is all about. She's got heals and poke and long range burst, but also that global ultimate to influence games from as early as level 6. If you've played against Senna this patch so far, you'll already know just how strong she is. And I for one have actually been permabanning her in every single game as an AD carry main. Senna is really quite deceiving because she looks so easy to kill and historically has been in my experience, but this patch she's just so hard to actually get hold of, as long as she has that positional awareness and knows that she can outrange you and still deal damage at the same time. Even as a support, Senna really does become the main carry in the majority of games if she gets to the late game. Janna is the second support on our list, and she really is the queen of utility. Janna is another champion similar to most on this list that was already in a good position. Ever since her mini rework earlier on in the season, she's just been a fantastic choice from this role. And although she's dipped in popularity a little bit recently, patch 12.10 has really brought her back to that top spot. Shields and heals have been nerfed, which means Soraka, Sona and Yuumi have all fallen down the pecking order a little bit, and this just means that Janna becomes even better. Janna also is a great pick to play alongside the really strong AD carries at the moment, and she kinda does work well with anyone. She also works into the majority of matchups and always has a way to win or go even in lanes, which is so important this patch as games are lasting a bit longer. So Janna's kit basically has everything you want from a support. She's got peel, she's got engage, she's got disengage, she's got slow, she's got shields, she's got knockbacks, and of course she's still got that massive AoE heal on her ultimate. All of these things are just so good at all stages in the game. Whether it's saving the day in that level 6 2v2 with your ultimate and your Q, or pumping out loads of healing and shields in late game teamfights. A very solid, consistent pick to go for in that support role this patch. Our third best support to play in patch 12.10 is Renata Glasc. A very all-rounded utility support with tons of ways to outplay her enemies and save her teammates at the same time. Her W's revive is absolutely game-changing and can be pivotal in those early 2v2s or late game teamfights. Renata's ultimate only gets better as the game goes on, and if you land a rank 3 ultimate in the late game, you're probably going to ace a team by yourself. Renata's kit has so much to offer, starting even from the basics of her passive. Bonus damage on auto attacks, then you've got her Q to CC people and catch people out, you've got her W to revive, to buff, to boost your allies, you've got your E, shields and damage and slows, and then you've got your ultimate. So as you can probably tell, this champion has a hell of a lot to offer. Renata has been so popular since her release, and after a somewhat shaky start, once people figured out how to actually play her and how to get those cooldowns lower, she's just been so heavily contested ever since. She does actually have a little bit of a high skill ceiling, but the basics of the champion are fairly straightforward. Renata is all about timing those ultimates to perfection, timing that W perfectly so your teammate gets the perfect revive off, timing your Q to disengage from an incoming threat, and timing those shields to save your team's lives. If you can manage to pull this off, this champion is a brilliant one to go for in patch 12.10. Our high elo pick for the support role has got to be Bard. Probably the support with the best creative outplay potential in the entire game. There's so many different creative ways to use his kit that just make him outplay so many different types of opponents. From roaming and ganking with your magical journey, from landing up ults to prevent towers from getting hit by rift heralds, lining up the perfect Q to lock down enemies in 2v2s, or even just saving the day with a clutch health shrine. There's so many things that this champion can do, and right now he's in a fantastic position to do them at the best of his ability. Bard has had a fairly quiet season after falling off a bit towards the start, but right now he's back in full swing, and those high elo players are really abusing it. Our low elo pick of the patch is going to go to Sona. She's had probably one of the best seasons she's had in recent League of Legends history, and it's not going to get too much worse for those low elo players. Shielding and healing might have been nerfed a bit, but scaling and extended fights is still in full swing, and Sona is definitely capable of really performing well in those games. If you are a low elo player and you're not too confident in your own capability, Sona is a great way to have lots of impact on games for very little risk. Well, that's going to bring us to the end of this best champions for every single role in patch 12.10. We hope you agree with our choices, and I really hope you're enjoying the patch so far. It's definitely a refreshing change of pace, and as an AD carry main, I'm happy to say that this feels so much better for me personally. Can't say the same for all those assassin mains out there though. Sorry guys. Thanks for watching guys, and let us know in the comments who you think is the most broken champion this patch. I've been your host Vale for the win here at Mobalytics, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care.